Like all stories, One Piece does have some moments where if plot armor did not exist, well, things would go down way differently. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love One Piece, and I find some of these instances of plot armor quite amusing. Something like comic relief, you may say. However, it is true that without plot armor, well, the story would be quite different. Now, we won't get into the metaphysical things that don't make sense. For example, we won't mention Brooks, well, everything. From how we can walk without muscle, to how we can speak without lungs and a mouth, to thinking without a brain, to eating without a stomach. Let's just leave those away for now. Let's talk about worse things. Like, for example, when it comes to Zoro throwing his sword up in the air and then putting his arm below it, so confident that it would not slice off his hand. Well, what if plot armor did not exist here? You see, the Straw Hats find their way in Loguetown, where Zoro at the time was looking to purchase 2 new swords. Zoro finds a store and enters. The owner of the shop tried to trick Zoro into selling the Wado Ichimonji for far less than its value, but Tashigi rushed into the shop and accidentally ruined the owner's ploy. Tashigi pointed out a cursed sword named Sandai Kitetsu to Zoro. Ipponmatsu told them about Kitetsu's curse line, which interested Zoro, who then decided to buy the sword and test his luck against the sword's curse. He threw the sword up and held out his arm, but the sword circled around Zoro's arm and left him uncut. After witnessing Zoro's caliber, the owner threw Yubashiri in for free, saying that this way he passed his dream to him. But this time around, plot armor does not exist. The sword falls, and well, just like in normal situations, this has a probability of like 99% of cutting off the person's hand. So this is what happens. Zoro loses all his aura. Everyone present starts screaming. Zoro's rushed to the nearest hospital, and let's not forget Chopper had not yet joined at the time, and all the money Zoro would spend on buying new swords goes instead to his medical bills. Sanji and Nami punch Zoro on the head, telling him he's an idiot. Zoro is now left with one arm, and well, the only way to keep his 3-sword style active is by using this method. Zoro's chances of becoming the world's greatest swordsman shrink, if not completely vanish. Okay, that instance was pure plot armor, but the biggest, most insane, most mind-blowing plot armor we witnessed so far in One Piece is none other than that instance with Pell. You see, during the Civil War in Alabasta, Crocodile had planted a bomb in the capital city, Alubarna. The bomb was hidden inside a clock tower in the middle of Alubarna. His intent wasn't just to destroy the city, though. It was to wipe out both the royal army and the rebel forces at once, making it look like they had annihilated each other. This would allow him to take over Alabasta without opposition once more. Pell, who ate the Zoan devil fruit, turning him into a flying falcon, was a royal guard of King Cobra. He discovered the bomb moments before it detonated. Realizing there wasn't enough time to dismantle it or evacuate the people, he transformed into his falcon form, grabbed the enormous bomb with his talons, and flew it high into the sky to save the kingdom. The bomb exploded midair, and Pell was at ground zero of the blast. Everyone believed he had sacrificed himself heroically for Alabasta, yet later on, he's revealed as alive, bandaged and recovering, something many fans consider one of the most infamous cases of plot armor in One Piece, because the bomb was said to have enough power to destroy the entire city, and Pell was right on top of it. Like, it doesn't get any worse than that when it comes to plot armor. Pell should have become dust, like not even feathers remaining. In the minimum, maybe he could have been something like a roast turkey, but coming out of it with a few scratches? Yeah, this was kind of insane. You know what's more insane though? Watching our videos and not subscribing to the channel. Come on, fix that, and while you're at it, go ahead and leave us a like. It helps us keep going. But now, back to the video. We just covered 2 points, and I'm not joking. I saved the most interesting one for last, where Luffy, well, he should have died at least 10 times so far with that in mind. But we're gonna get there soon. Now, let's move on to number 3. Now, what if next we speak about someone who should have drowned instead of having to be blown up? You see, let's assume something real quick. We have Luffy, one of the dumbest people to have ever walked the earth. He can't swim because he ate a devil fruit, and he decides to set sail on his own on a ship that, well, let's face it, he's lucky to get a few miles in before water sinks it. So that's what happens. And once his little raft sinks, Luffy is forced to enter his barrel and just wait for someone to pick him up from the ocean before he either starves to death or sinks to the bottom of the ocean. Under normal circumstances, yeah, Luffy dies either inside that barrel or sinks at the bottom of the ocean. I mean, I can't even imagine how it smelled inside that barrel with Luffy trapped in there for days. Forget about the sweat. Where did Luffy go to the bathroom anyway? But yeah, without plot armor, Luffy casually dies before he even sets sail. The result? Kobe remains captive of Alvida and is never set free. Alvida never loses to Luffy Luffy and hence does not want to change, and as a result, she stays fat forever. Zoro's captive of the Marines and executed shortly after. When Kuro arrives in Syrup Island, he kills Usopp and all of the island residents. Don Krieg attacks Baratier and kills some of the people in it. Sanji, however, survives for a little bit longer, at least until Mihawk arrives. When Mihawk arrives, he slices Krieg in half, and the rest of Baratier is free. In Arlong, Nami is still Arlong's slave and continues to be abused, as there's no one who's gonna help her. Laboon does not meet the Straw Hats, and he keeps rampaging on the seas. Drum Island is taken by Wapol, and everyone there becomes his slaves, including Chopper. In Alabasta, Vivi is killed by Crocodile, and Robin does not leave the country. In Skypiea, Enel continues to rule everyone. Enel also develops into a way stronger character later on. In Water 7, Frankie just keeps on being a nudist pervert and never leaves the country. When the world government actually finds Robin, they take her, and they execute her. There's no one left to help her. In Thriller Bark, Gecko Moria is left free to continue taking shadows of people. However, Oars is not awakened because Moria didn't find anyone strong enough to give a soul for him yet. Brook remains in Thriller Bark for eternity. In Marineford, Ace doesn't become a donut. Rather, he gets decapitated way earlier. That's because Luffy's not there to use Conqueror's Haki and save him. Hody Jones is left roaming free in Fishman Island, and eventually does take control over it. Shirahoshi is abused and used in ways to benefit Hody Jones, since she's an ancient weapon. In Dressrosa, Rebecca is never freed from the Colosseum battles. She eventually dies in battle. Viola is kept being abused by Doflamingo, and there's no one who can help her. Law's plan to take down Doflamingo fails, and as a result, Law is taken captive and tortured until he performs the Ope no Mi surgery on Dofi's wish. Law refuses to perform the surgery no matter what, so Law dies many years later after extreme suffering without, however, granting Dofi's wish. Doflamingo keeps supplying Kaido with weapons, and in Punk Hazard, Caesar keeps creating the smiles that are sent to Wano. The Scabbards and Momonosuke are eventually found out and killed. People of Zoo are attacked by Jack. Sanji is eventually found and taken to marry Pudding. However, Pudding in the end shoots and kills Sanji, as these were her original intentions. No one frees Wano, and Yamato remains in shackles forever. And all of that simply because Luffy was too stupid in episode 1 and managed to get himself drowned. And speaking of people drowning, well, the way I see it, if it weren't for plot armor, half the Devil Fruit users should have drowned in the sea. I mean, we're talking about a show with pirates, where most of them cannot even swim because they ate a devil fruit. Literally half of their battles take place in the sea. And should I even mention the insane weather phenomena observed in the One Piece oceans? And yet, we have seen pricelessly 0 people dying from drowning. Big Mom, for example, was literally thrown into the ocean. And for someone who's not only quite heavy, but also their body sinks to the bottom of the ocean against their will, how the heck was she not washed off the ocean? And even more than that, alive! Well, for Luffy, we already mentioned his barrel instance, but, well, let's just say the times where he could have drowned if plot armor wasn't a thing are in the very least quite a few. And then we have Kaido that was, quote, trying to die but couldn't. Here's an idea, brother. The sea. It's quite big. Just jump in it. Your body can literally not resurface. And mentioning not being able to die, we need to talk about Zoro's nothing happened moment. Because, well, it was 100% plot armor. The Straw Hats had just fought their hardest battle against Gecko Moria and his zombie army. Luffy pushed himself to the limit to defeat Moria, but the fight left everyone drained and barely able to move. Just when they thought it was over, another nightmare arrived. Bartholomew Kuma, one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Unlike Moria, Kuma wasn't playing games. He was under direct orders from the world government to eliminate the Straw Hats, or so we thought at the time. The crew was already battered and had no chance of fighting him head-on. Kuma, with his paw-paw powers, could overwhelm them effortlessly. At that point, Zoro made a decision. He would sacrifice himself to protect Luffy and the rest of the crew. That's when Zoro confronted Kuma alone and struck a deal. He offered to take on all of Luffy's pain and suffering for the battle. Kuma used his Devil Fruit ability to transfer Luffy's pain into a massive bubble of torment, and Zoro stepped into it without hesitation. As confirmed by Oda, Zoro was already on the verge of death, and even like that, he took all of Luffy's pain that was also on the verge of death, even closer than Zoro was, as a matter of fact. Zoro, as added by Oda, actually died in that scene, but his soul got lost on the way to heaven, causing it to return right back to his body. I mean, come on. If that's not plot armor, I don't know what is. And yet the biggest plot armor regarding Zoro getting lost is still yet to be talked about. I mean, think about it. For a guy who doesn't know the difference between left and right, for a guy who sees something in front of him and yet somehow manages to run in the other direction, someone who cannot run in a straight line even if his life depended on it, how is it possible that he never got lost? And I'm not talking about getting a bit lost and then found after a while. I'm talking about getting lost to the point where he literally cannot be reached. Because let's be honest, for a guy who cannot even do basic navigation, then getting lost eventually should have been more likely than not. Add the chaos of battle within the entire country, injuries, the inability to communicate through phones or such, and potentially even the size of some countries being huge, then I do think Zoro getting left behind should have been a more realistic approach. I mean, for God's sakes, when Zoro returned in Sabaody after the time skip, he accidentally slept in a ship that was about to go underwater. Thus, he had to cut the ship in half to escape. Next up, well, we've got to talk about Buggy's, well, entire life. This guy is literally plot armor in the flesh. He gets imprisoned, taken captive, people want to kill him right and left. He has the reputation of being in the crew of Goldie Roger. He's got a massive bounty, and even with all of these, he's probably one of the weakest characters in the New World. And not only that, he steals the spotlight from both Mihawk and Crocodile, which, let's just say, are not impressed. In the end, I wouldn't even be surprised if Buggy ended up becoming the pirate king with the plot armor he has. The guy didn't even do anything, and yet became a Yonko. That's how big his plot armor is. Speaking of Buggy, to be fair to him, there was a moment where plot armor was against him. And when was that, you might ask? When he tried to kill Luffy in Loketown. After leaving Arlong Park, the Straw Hats stopped in Loketown, the city where Goldie Roger was born, and executed. Each crew member went off on their own errands. Luffy wanted a new cooking pan, Zoro went to get new swords, Sanji looked for ingredients, but trouble followed. Buggy the Clown and Alvida, who had been chasing Luffy since the East Blue, tracked him down. With help from Buggy's crew, they captured Luffy and tied him up at the very execution platform where Roger had died. Buggy was determined to take revenge and execute Luffy in the same place, in front of the whole crowd. Meanwhile, Zoro and Sanji were rushing to save him, but they couldn't get there in time. As Buggy raised his sword to finish Luffy, a massive lightning bolt struck the platform, saving Luffy at the very last second. Well, this has to be a bit of plot armor, right? I mean, either Dragon was randomly there at the same time as his son, and thus saved him, or even worse, lightning randomly struck and saved Luffy. Nonetheless, this was a classic example of plot armor in One Piece. And yet, the moment that kinda had the most plot armor with Luffy surviving is, of course, this moment with Luffy. I mean, Luffy was just stabbed by Crocodile through the guts. It doesn't really get any worse than that. And even Luffy feels like he's on the verge of death. And how does he come back? He eats a bit of meat. I mean, at this point, meat is just the senzu bean of Dragon Ball, but in the One Piece world instead. But was that the only time something like that happened? Not quite. It happened with Katakuri as well, where half of Luffy's side was blown off. But I'm not gonna talk about that one, to be honest. Instead, I'm gonna talk about an even worse case. Luffy surviving Magellan's poison. Luffy broke into Impel Down to rescue his brother Ace, who was being held before his transfer to Marineford for execution. Inside the prison, he fought his way through the levels, facing beasts, guards, and even old enemies like Buggy and Mr. 3, who ended up tagging along. The warden of Impel Down, Magellan, finally confronted him. Now, Magellan was feared across the seas, not only for his authority, but for his terrifying venom fruit, which let him generate and control deadly poison. Now, Luffy surviving long enough for Ivankov to help him? Well, that was quite the plot armor, as it was said that even the smallest dose from Magellan's poison is enough to kill instantly anyone. Now, we did talk about Luffy magically healing his injuries with just a bit of meat, but how about that case with Zoro? You see, when Zoro was about to fight King, he was just a few moments before that he wasn't even able to move. I mean, we're talking multiple broken bones to the point that he was a mummy with all those bandages. And yeah, I know Chopper did his magic on him, but really, not even a bit of drawback? Good as new? No issues in moving? Nothing? The drug was induced as following. It had a special effect. It could temporarily heal Zoro's body and restore his strength to full fighting condition, essentially letting him fight as if he hadn't been injured. But there was a dangerous cost. Once the effect wore off, the pain and damage would come back twice as bad. And yet, well, it does seem pretty convenient, right? Next, I'd like us to head back a bit, all the way to Marineford. Remember what a beast Whitebeard was in this arc? I mean, he was moving like a demon. He meant business. And what was the issue with that? Well, two things. Remember how Whitebeard literally split the entire island in half? Like, you could literally see the ground splitting in half apart? And yet, with attacks of that scale, nobody dies? Don't you think this was a bit anticlimactic? And even more than that, Whitebeard punching Akainu with a quake-infused, also probably hockey-infused punch that should have absolutely destroyed him. Well, Akainu just resurfaced like nothing had happened. And should we mention Crocodile surviving Whitebeard's attacks too? When a few arcs before that, he was defeated by Luffy, who at the same time was nothing more than a rookie. To be honest, Marineford was one of my favorite arcs in One Piece, but if we really analyze it truthfully, well, in that case, there are quite a lot of plot armor instances like that. But now, for the final point, I saved the most exciting one for last. You see, Luffy is without a doubt not the smartest. I think we all know that. But what if I told you that Luffy should have died at least 5 to 10 times so far? Exactly because he's that dumb. I mean, let's recall a bit some of the things he's done. He took his entire crew and jumped from Zunesha, and I'm talking about 5,000 meter high creature. Not only that, he took all of his crew with him as well. How did they survive? Luffy had previously violated an octopus by putting him in his pants. Yeah, this had to be sexual harassment, but anyway. That octopus worked as a parachute, and with this, the Straw Hats were saved. But again, was this the only case? Not quite. He ate a poisonous fish without even cooking it first, and just by pure luck, Reiju was there and decided to help him. Oh, and did we mention how he cannot swim and yet jumped in water on his own multiple times and had to be rescued because of it? I mean, there was that one time where Chopper fell in the water, and since Chopper is a devil fruit user and can't swim, Luffy decided to jump in and save him since he also cannot swim. Brilliant. Oh, we should also mention the time where he threw this lit dynamite on his crewmates and blew them up. Luckily, they survived, but yeah, the point remains. Luffy and his crew should have died multiple times so far, all because of Luffy's stupidity. But luckily for us, plot armor exists, and thus, we can keep enjoying One Piece for years more. Click on this video next, where I'm explaining as well as ranking all 18 major families in One Piece. Go on, check it out!